So this video popped up on my feed this morning, and I got so excited. I had to jump on and record a reaction video here, because I was talking about this just 2 weeks ago in the video I uploaded about my anorexia when I was in my teens, where I tried to starve my body of all female attributes. And of course, that wasn't that conscious back then, and I did not realize it was related to autism. So he's talking here about the relation between autism and gender identity.
Is that if you have a patient with autism, you should consider evaluating them for gender identity issues. And if you have a patient who's got gender identity issues, you should evaluate them for autism.
And he's literally saying what I was thinking of saying, but then backed off because I was afraid it might be could be offensive to people whose struggle with their gender is not related to autism. But for me, it absolutely was. And I can add so much to this video because I lived it. I know how it felt. And I did a lot of thinking about it, especially since I realized I'm autistic. Let's listen here.
So what I want to talk to you all about today is something really, really interesting. And that is, there's a new paper that just came out that's a meta-analysis looking at the relationship between autism spectrum disorder and gender identity issues. And I really, really love this paper because it illustrates a lot of really cool things. So the first thing that we've got to kind of dive into is that around 2010, there was a paper that came out which is that if you look at people who have...
Scrub through here a little bit.
So if you look at people who have autism spectrum disorder, they're 11 times more likely to have gender identity issues, okay? So that's kind of really interesting because it suggests that there's a very strong link. So what the paper essentially did is it's something called a... If we take, let's say, 100 people with autism spectrum...
So going through here, of course, he looks at it from a very scientific way.
We can start
what the percentages are,
so does being a doctor make you more likely to be Indian,
could be,
or does being Indian make you more likely
he's talking about what
this is really
causation versus correlation is.
And then what we... genetic phenomenon.
But he's not really getting into the why. And I think that's why I wanted to react to it, right? Because there's a couple of things that are not mentioned in the video, which should be so obvious, which is the first thing is that a lot of people with autism have sensory issues. So as your body rapidly changes as you enter puberty, that can be hugely uncomfortable. I did not like my body. I did not like the female attributes that were developing. It felt like just pockets of fat springing up all over my body, and I wanted to starve myself to get rid of them, and that's definitely that was a big factor. That's not mentioned here. And then of course gender identity is also a very social role. As you grow from a child into a woman or a child into a man, like in my case, a woman, there are so many social expectations that are suddenly foisted on you. The way women look at you, the way suddenly everybody looks at how you dress, the way that men look at you might make advances. You have to deal with that and figure out what they want. And as a person with autism, you kind of know that you're just feeling your way around, especially in your teens. And it is very difficult. So no wonder that people with autism, when they're young, especially report that they are very uncomfortable with their gender role. And I think a big point here is that no, I didn't want to be a man or anything else. I just didn't want to be a woman. So
that I have that may
if I can find here.
But my sense of being a man is sort of determined somewhat internally. There's an external component and there's an internal component. And if we have people who struggle to understand their internal state, it sort of makes sense that they would struggle to understand what their gender identity is. Because
so he's talking about mentalizing, and of course, people with autism have a harder time understanding other people, putting themselves in their shoes. And also very often they have a hard time understanding what they are themselves are thinking. And of course that can figure into, the gender role. Like you wonder what are the expectations, or what should I be feeling. But to me that's actually a minor point. That's like one of the main psychological points that he goes into, but to me that was just a very minor point compared to sensory issues with my body, and being very uncomfortable with all the social expectations that come with a gender role. And another point I want to make is, especially in my case, autism runs in families. So if you're an autistic child going through puberty, at least one parent is probably autistic themselves, and they might have a hard time guiding you through that, or giving any kind of indication that it might be a positive thing that you grow from a child into an adult. Like my mother was definitely very uncomfortable with being a woman way into her adulthood, until, even after she had several children. Unfortunately, with me, I became completely comfortable with being a woman, in the course of my 20s, probably, and wouldn't want to be anything else right now. And it really is, and he gets into that too in the video, that people, he doesn't really give a reason, but he does note it as a let me see if I can find it here. But yeah, he does mention too that in the study, there was a higher percentage during in the younger population, versus as people got older, the percentage dropped. So yeah, here people with autism spectrum disorder, with kids, it was up to 21% who had gender issues, whereas with adults it dropped a lot. So I can definitely understand that, because you're definitely behind socially if you have autism, because of your troubles with interactions, and some trauma probably, and trouble reading others. So from your intelligence level, and even to a big part emotionally, at the age, say 18, you are 18, but socially you might be, gotta say it, you might be 11 or 12. So no wonder that then you might have gender issues, possibly even into your 20s, but you grow out of it, because it's not like autistic people just don't evolve socially. They just evolve a lot slower. Their brain has to work a lot harder, and social interactions are always a challenge, but you get better at it. And I get into that in some of my other videos. But yeah, so he's talking a lot about the scientific genetic correlation here. He's talking a little bit about that mentalizing part, but he did not get into some of the aspects that, looking back, to me were like the issues, and I just want to mention that here. And yeah, if you want to hear more about my full experience as I was going through anorexia, as I was starving myself to avoid becoming a woman for a while, and yeah, I lost a big part of my teenage years entirely to it. So that is very sad. But on the positive side, of course, I recovered from it. So I'm lucky in that way. And it has been extremely gratifying to realize what really was behind it. And it's kind of funny, if you go to Wikipedia, it still says like people don't know what's causing anorexia. And of course, in my video, I do propose that potentially a ton of the young women who have anorexia are under or non-diagnosed high-functioning autistics. But yeah, so definitely recommend his video to watch, and then put it next to my personal experience. And it's definitely, I'm very, very glad that he mentioned that, and that people are looking into it, because the struggle was so hard for me. And it would have been so wonderful to realize that it was all related to autism. There would have been a better way to tackle it for me, my parents, my therapists that didn't know what to do with me and actually did more harm than help. But high functioning autism is way underdiagnosed. Even professionals don't pick up on it, even people who studied it. And ironically, yes, my channel even started as the presumption that I was a neurotypical woman talking about my experiences with dating men on the spectrum 5 years ago. And yeah, here I am a few years later, and I had realized that I'm on the spectrum myself. And so I talk a lot about that now. But yeah, so just wanted to throw this in here, unscripted, just a bit of a rambling in reaction to this. And yeah, so look forward to my next regular video soon. Bye.